Hi, this is Adolfo Massari with LBI Limited. I'm here today with the 1988 Porsche Turbo Cup car and our friend Gregory Coe.
Hello, I'm Gregory Coe. I'm a specialist of transaxle Porsches, and with my friend Ron Teachin, I'm authoring a book on the 944 Turbo Cup and the Rothman series. I'm really excited to be here, Adolfo.
Oh, me too. We're going to get into the Turbo Cup series in general, a brief overview of the history, and then also get into the particulars about why the Turbo Cup cars are so cool and different from the 944s, the production cars. So let's get right into it.
In the 1970s, it was widely believed that the 911 had run its course. The sentiment at Porsche was that racing was good for advertising, and what was good for advertising was ultimately good for business. So Ernst Fuhrman gave the Type 924 production car, and he gave it and put it into the hands of Norbert Singer. Singer and his team reimagined the car as we know it. They created this new Type 937 homologation vehicle, Carrera GT, GTS, and of course, the racer GTR. By the 1980 running of Le Mans, unfortunately, the homologation car was not yet ready, and so the 2-liter 924 competed in prototype class against the big boys. It still did quite well. The results were really very impressive. The 3 vehicles that were submitted by Porsche system respectively finished 6th, 12th, and 13th overall. By 1981, Porsche went back to the drawing board. They then gave the car to Hans Mezger and asked that he create a bespoke motor. Indeed, he did, a Type 944 motor. It was a dual overhead cam, turbocharged motor, and what was especially impressive was that it was coupled with a Bosch Motronic state-of-the-art system. The combination, that sort of pairing made it so by the 1981 running, that car finished first in class, GTP class, and 7th overall with Roll and Barth at the wheel. We, the public, did not see a road-going derivative until the following year, 1982, at which point the 924 was exhausted, and we then see the 944. The 944 then is a race car first, road car second, back to race car. So what began as the Porsche Challenge in 1985 soon became the Porsche Rothmans Turbo Cup beginning in 1988. The series was first class. It was sponsored by some of the most reputable names in motorsport. It was televised, and it offered lucrative winnings. The series champion actually that year was given a seat in a Rothmans-backed 962C at the next year's running at the 24 Hours Le Mans. But all of this was really made possible thanks to a Canadian gentleman by the name of David Deacon. Deacon not only had the idea to create a North American circuit and a series for single marquee racing, but on a broader basis, he had this idea of taking the Type 944 chassis and giving it this sort of worldwide racing spectacle. So here we have the Rothman series. 3 fundamental principles ground it. It had to be made affordable to racers. It needed to be first class, and it needed to be competitive. In order to make it affordable, Porsche provided a full factory warranty, drivetrain, everything inclusive. For it to be first class, we see the sponsorship here. Secured sponsorship, Rothmans, Porsche, Shell, Pirelli. And then in order to be competitive, the door had to be open to not only established racers, but also grassroots racers. And in the context of this vehicle here, chassis 82, we see this Reebok livery. This was raced by a grassroots racer, Rick Bye.
Rick Bye was just that, a competitive grassroots racer from Ontario, Canada. Now, prior to his involvement in the series, he was a Porsche tech, a mechanic at a local dealership. In his mid-30s, and he was very into racing, very competitive at the time, but he wanted to do more. He struck up a conversation with David Deacon, which eventually led to his involvement in the naturally aspirated portion of the series, which then led to the Turbo Cup series. Now, part of being a grassroots driver is to gain your own sponsorship, market yourself, generate the advertising dollars in order to afford your ability to race and be competitive. So Rick actually knew a local Reebok rep, and they were sponsoring a Toronto area Zamboni that was home of the Toronto Maple Leafs, a professional hockey team. So the rep's idea was to put the livery from the 5-mile-per-hour Zamboni on the 180-mile-an-hour sports car. Rick immediately shot that down and said, no way, we're not gonna make it look like a 5-mile-per-hour Zamboni. We're gonna create this incredibly rad, ridiculous color scheme emblazoned with the Reebok Agincourt Auto House and Cook Motorsports graphics. Now, Rick really wanted to maximize the panels on the car to maximize advertising revenue. Reebok, big, large letters over the hood, over the rear and the sides, so that anytime a camera was pointed at it, that would be loud and in your face.
So this is Rick Bye's 944 Turbo Cup car. And a 944 Turbo Cup is a special built, purpose-built, Weissach-built Porsche. The cars are what they are through serious development at the Weissach Research Institute. And their technical merits could be categorized as nothing short of exceptional. A Rothman series car is a car that's defined by these characters in its VIN, JN165, coupled with 4 codes, Canadian emissions, ABS brakes, without chrome and lacquer protection, as well as cup preparation. The first Rothman series car is car chassis 61. The last is number 99. This is chassis 82. It makes for about 39 total Rothmans cars. The 39 Rothmans cars plus 11 IMSA Escort cars from 1 year prior make for 50 Turbo Cup cars for North America. And those 50 cars make up approximately 25% of the total worldwide production of 944 Turbo Cups. So no less than 52 notable enhancements differentiate the Cup car from the series production 944 Turbo. It really starts with the additional welds that can be found all along the length of the unibody chassis. To the roof here, sunroof delete. Inside you have a multi-point matter cage. You may recognize these mirrors. They would have been found on a contemporary Volkswagen or Audi. They share a similar part number. The hood is fiberglass, and it's the only fiberglass component on the car. But this is actually my favorite part of it. This is a magnesium wheel. They're staggered wheels, 8s in the front, 9s in the rear. On most cars, it would have been finished in a 3-stage pearlescent white, but in the case of Rick's here, he finished it in yellow to complement the rest of the livery. So the motor of a 944 Turbo Cup is really something. Externally, you'll immediately note the magnesium intake manifold. Here there's a K26 turbocharger, there's a revised wastegate. The internal components of the M4452 block are totally hand-picked, hand-selected by Weissach technicians. All of this, combined with revised DME mapping, was good for 250 horsepower on paper, but many teams reported something closer to 325 to the wheels. The M4452 block with a 47J prefix likely makes this engine original to the car. Whilst we're here, I would like to take note, a tremendous amount of engineering went into the suspension. It's here really that makes the car feel so much more than a standard series production 944 Turbo. You've got fully adjustable Bilstein coilovers. You've got a stiffened strut tower. You've got the brace that spans the length of the engine. You also have a fast ratio rack and pinion manual steering box, thus the reason for the lack of power steering reservoir. Over here you have the CASC specific, Canadian specific registered number. You have the laser etched chassis number. You have a series mandated battery cutoff. And then over here, this is a driver specific fire suppression system that Rick would have installed on his own. Now, while almost all interior design and details were shared with the standard production 944 Turbo, because the Cup was met with stringent weight requirements, meant that it was appointed in a manner best suited towards ergonomics and racing. Luxuries and interior appointments, which were common touches for Porsches of the era, became all but foreign on the Cup car. Of the 52 notable enhancements that I mentioned earlier, no fewer than 16 apply to the interior cabin. The biggest and the most substantial is what I'm sitting in as we speak. This is a bespoke Recaro fixed position hardback sports seat. The passenger seat is a fully scripted cloth standard 85 series seat, specifically placed here so that the scrutineer had the opportunity to ride passenger and to ensure no tricks or cheats were put into any one of the vehicles. You'll notice the rear seat, or lack thereof, rear seat delete. But what is here is the continuation of the fully scripted cloth, just the rear and the bottom section. Over here is a series-specific and correct for the vehicle fire extinguisher, in the event you may need it.
Scott Goodyear has made an incredible charge up through the back, and no problems with the Rick Bye car.
Serious?
There's a fire aboard Rick Bye's Porsche. There you can see from Scott Goodyear's car, Rick Bye weaving back and forth. Scott Goodyear having to battle his way around Rick Bye.
Goodyear had to deal with all the oil coming out of Bye's car. This is serious trouble. Rick Bye is out of this race, and that's too bad. Bye was running in third. This is by far his best race so far.
So moving around to the rear of the car, well, first thing we'll note is the rear wiper and rear wiper motor delete. But gaining access to the trunk, well, firstly, it's afforded to us by this forever key here, which is always, per series regulation, intact in the event of an accident, rollover, or anything of the sort. This is a Turbo Cup specific lightweight carpet. On the vertical wall here between the rear tails is the code tag. Just beneath the floor pan is the transaxle. The limited slip is unique to the Turbo Cup car. It sports strengthened gears. The transmission is fantastic. It not only sports a transmission cooler, the gears themselves have been strengthened, but the top gear has been specifically enhanced to take on tracks such as Mosport and Mont Tremblant. So on the Rothmans Turbo Cup cars, the exhaust system is in itself a very interesting development. The race promoters, they needed a system, honestly, that sounded aggressive but also very pleasant. So they took inspiration from 18-wheel trucks at the time and then commissioned Walker Muffler to create such a system. And I think the results speak for themselves.
All right, we're in the Rick Bye car. We're out on public streets. It's titled, it's plated, has all the safety requirements in order to be able to be driven on the street. Very versatile car. You can go from the track right to the street and go through some gears. Because you could take it to a Cars and Coffee, you could take it out to dinner. It's actually very comfortable in the grand scheme of things, considering that it is a purpose-built race car. This car competed in the 1988 and 1989 seasons with Rick Bye at the wheel. It achieved multiple podium finishes and one truly spectacular win during the 89 season at Mont Tremblant, a race that Rick Bye never planned on attending at all. It was actually a race that started dry, then became wet, and ended dry again. It's a funny story because midway through the race, it was red flagged and the field came in to put on wet tires as it started pouring. Rick Bye stayed on slicks, and as the race progressed, the rain subsided and a dry line formed. Rick Bye, being on slicks, started passing everyone. Passing, and then eventually gained a commanding lead and won the race handedly. It was actually later revealed in a post-race interview that Rick Bye didn't necessarily plan being on slicks the whole race. He actually said,
when I came in, I knew we I had to look at the sky and to look at our budget and realize we had no rain tires mounted, so I wish I could say I was a wizard, but we had no choice.
He didn't really have it in the budget to even buy wet tires, so he just had to stay on slicks. And that story is so exemplary of the grassroots nature of the series, and it's a story that I love to tell about the series and of Rick Bye as a character.
An anticlimactic final race in 1990 marked the end of 944 racing in Canada. Some teams kept their cars, some racers kept them, some were sold and others were modified. The 911 would soon take over as the factory-back Cup car, which would later become a part of the Porsche Super Cup. But unlike the 944 series, the 911 series was not made affordable to all, and no longer was it a worldwide driver series. In fact, furthermore, the 911 was delivered to North America to then be modified into a racer by a third party. the 944 Turbo Cup was a turnkey Visac-built vehicle delivered with a title.
That is the Rothmans Turbo Cup, the Turbo Cup in particular, and the Rick Bye Car. Thank you very much, Gregory, for coming by and telling us all your minutiae on these cars.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Have a look for the book when it comes out. We're probably still a year away, but the research, it's done.
Excellent. Can't wait. Thank you.